So this is my most favorite question that I ask VPs of marketing, VPs of sales, CEOs of companies. How many leads do you need to generate a month to hit your revenue targets for the year? How many people know the answer to that question? Okay, excellent. Many people don't know the correlation between how many people they need to get into the discussion and keep in the discussion in order to generate revenue. And the reason that that's so important is at the end of the 12 months when the CFO comes to you and says, so we just spent all this money on the system, what did it do for us? You need to be able to answer the question, right? And you only can answer the question if you say, well, our goal was to communicate actively with 500 people every month, and of those 500 people, we needed to convert X number in order to hit our revenue goals. And we have a very simple metric and a very simple basis for that, and we know that if we do that, we will be successful at the end of the year, and we have a couple of steps, and they could be very rudimentary steps along the way, but that's what we're trying to understand, okay? And right out the gate, you want to know that, so that if somebody says, I need this much money for software, I need this much money for a resource, and I need this much money for outside services to maybe create content, do whatever it takes, and this is how much we're going to spend every month, the correlation between what we're spending every month and those leads that we're generating or nurturing, you need to be able to come back and show what you did. And that's just a really high-level calculation that I think at a very basic level, I think most people can get, but they're either afraid to ask the question or they don't ask the question. And we think it's the most important question you should ask right out the gate. The next one that you should be asking, and this is a really tough one to calculate. How much do you want to spend to generate a lead? And I grew up in the heyday of financial services marketing and selling software in the financial services industry when nobody batted an eye saying they were going to spend $100,000 to go to a trade show. One trade show, 3 days, 100 grand. And when you do the math on the leads generated at that trade show, we were probably spending $10,000 a lead. I have to believe there's a more cost-effective way to do lead generation. And you know, when you kind of cycle it back and you think about it, and even the CEO of the company that I used to work for would say, well, we have to be there because if we're not there, the competitors are going to say we've gone out of business. And I'm thinking, is that a good enough reason to spend $100,000? Likely not. So I think you want to come back to people and say, any idea, if you put all in costs together, what's it costing to generate a lead for your business? And you want to have that understood. The next thing that we always ask people is, have you done everything you possibly can with Google Analytics? Before you look to put other tools in play, we ask about Google Analytics for 2 reasons. 1, it's free. And 2, it's collecting data that gives us important markers on the internet about where the whole notion of search is going. And a lot of people that we start engagements with, the first thing we say is, can we have access to your Google Analytics? And there's oftentimes a difficult time getting access to that because, well, we're not quite sure where it is. Nobody's looked at it lately. You know, there's a lot of things going on in the conversation. It happens every single time. When we finally get down to brass tacks, nobody's been in there, nobody's looked at the data, and we're thinking, there's gold in them hills. There's gold sitting here as far as the information. And a lot of people don't realize that they already have at their fingertips a lot of what they could be doing and what they could be using. So we always ask, have you done everything you can? Do you have specific goal-oriented dashboards set up? That's another one that's tracking goals and measuring over time. Are you tracking specific leads and goals? So, you know, the joke that I always used to have with my good friend Andrew Ford, who we used to talk about the alignment between sales and marketing, and sales' biggest complaint was always marketing is generating leads that aren't any good and the sales team doesn't want to follow up on, and marketing's biggest complaint is they're creating all of this material and sales isn't using it. And this is a classic sales and marketing problem, and it just gets, believe me, it just gets magnified when you start to put marketing automation on here. And so we do a lot of work following up with the sales team to say, of all of these people who downloaded or did something last month, were they good? Was it garbage? Where did it go? Because tracking those specific numbers just at a very rudimentary basis can be very life-changing in a business to see what the real return is on work that's getting done. Are you using data to make decisions and changes to your website? That's another really important one, because people don't use data before they decide to, take off the click here button or remove something or add something. And I used to joke, people always had I used to call it homepage-itis, where every department wanted to be on the homepage. Everybody who had anything to sell in the company wanted to be on the homepage. And so a lot of people aren't doing that. Then other questions around how often are you sending out content? How often can you commit to make changes? I mean, this is another thing about marketing automation. It's going to start to give you tremendous insight into what people are doing when they interact with your company. And it always amazes me that when we learn things, we don't then make changes to support what we learn. And sometimes that's because we're working with a website that doesn't allow us to make the kind of changes we want to make, or we're working with different tools that are maybe a little bit trickier to manipulate. But if you're going to put the time and effort into marketing automation and getting that data, then you should have a plan for how you're going to make changes. And that's hugely important in this. Do you have your sales process clearly defined? Do you have a good idea of your buyer personas? Do you have list segmentation complete? And then the other one we always ask, if you're not already actively running an email marketing program today, you're a ways away from marketing automation, because you need to get the nut of something like email marketing down first before you start to layer in the complexity of another system and online website tracking and all of that good stuff. So we always ask people, let's look at 12 months of data from your email marketing program. And quite frankly, that's where people kind of stop in their tracks and go, what? What do you want? It's like, well, let's look at 12 months of data to see what people have done with your campaigns to date. And that is, again, coming back to that data point. And you're probably not ready yet if you aren't actively mining data out of some kind of email marketing platform, because that's going to be a huge part of figuring out what you need.